Nikkei Asia, 7th of March 2023, Chinese ambitions and fears can be better understood thanks to a U.S. translation effort. China is a complex country to comprehend. It will say one thing, maintain its reputation and do something entirely different because it is more convenient. To better understand Beijing's goals, anxieties, and perceptions of its capabilities, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a Washington-based think tank, has quietly amassed an archive of 200 translations of recent Chinese speeches, academic papers, and government documents. The Interpret China initiative is modeled after how the United States tried to comprehend the Soviet leadership in detail during the Cold War. The project's co-director, Jude Blanchette, Cheese Freeman Chair in China Studies, says on the website, "All too often we're depending on what others are saying about China, but we want to pause and listen to the debate, the dialogue, the discourse that's occurring within the country." The database is altering how experts talk about China. Elbridge Colby, Glaser, and Michael Mazarr were among a panel of defense experts that CSIS convened on Monday morning. Participants were required to read 87 pages of translated Chinese commentary. Blanchette selected 3 recent Chinese papers on American strategy. He thanked the judges for completing their homework before the webinar. Former Pentagon employee Colby expressed to the group his admiration for the nuanced and sophisticated nature of the analyses. He pointed out that one of the papers had accurately concluded that many U.S. efforts to strengthen deterrence are defensive and intended to preserve the status quo. Colby said, "It gave me a little more confidence that we should be able to convey the point if we match our strategic reasoning in a consistently status quo-oriented way, strategically defensive, even if it involves operational or tactical offensive actions." The documents were mind-blowing, according to Sean Monahan, a visiting fellow with the CSIS Europe, Russia, and Eurasia program. The American game theorist and political scientist, respectively, were what I received instead of Sun Tzu, according to my naive expectation, Monahan said. "We share many of the same reference points, which is intriguing and noteworthy. It's comforting to know that when it comes to knowing what deterrence, compulsion, and coercion mean, we're all speaking from the same hymnal." Glaser, a China specialist and managing director of the Indo-Pacific program at the German Marshall Fund, cast doubt on the likelihood that Chinese President Xi Jinping was perusing such policy documents. She jokingly said, "No one knows what Xi Jinping reads, but I can assure you that he doesn't read these stories." She added that others in the system might read them, though. According to Glaser, U.S. government officials and experts monitoring the conversation can better grasp the points being made and those that the Chinese leadership shares. If the United States believes there is a genuine misunderstanding of something that the U.S. is doing, reading these articles gives us a chance to return to the Chinese and say, this particular point is a misunderstanding of U.S. policy. That is something that we should do. She cited the October surprise, in which the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, called his Chinese counterpart General Li Zuoqing on October 30, 2020, 4 days before the election that ousted President Donald Trump, to reassure him that the United States was not planning a strike in the South China Sea. According to intelligence analysis, China thought the United States was planning such an attack. According to Glaser, this illustrates how reading these articles can give us a sense of how the Chinese might misinterpret American intentions and take precautions to prevent an escalation spiral. This coincides with a bipartisan hardening of Washington's views on China. Politicians from both parties took turns outlining the danger China presents at the House Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party's recent inaugural meeting. This may be a strategic battle but not a courtside tennis match. The most basic freedoms are at risk in this existential struggle throughout life in the 21st century, according to Mike Gallagher, the Republican Select Committee chairman. The Chinese Communist Party is laser-focused on its vision for the future, a world crowded with techno-totalitarian surveillance regimes where human liberties are subordinate to the whims of the party, he said. Democratic ranking member Raja Krishnamurthy said, Democrats and Republicans alike undervalued the CCP over the past 3 decades and believed that trade and investment would undoubtedly result in democracy and increased security throughout the Indo-Pacific, including in China. The exact reverse took place. On his CNN show on Sunday, journalist Fareed Zakaria claimed that attending the House committee hearing on February 28 was like going back to the 1950s. Members of both parties competed with one another to be the most critical of China. Because of the dynamic it generates, the rational policy is challenging, said he. But having the proper perspective on Beijing's objectives does not necessarily translate into improved policy. Mazarr, a senior political scientist at Rand Corporation, said the U.S. is caught in a security dilemma during Monday's webinar. We are stuck in a situation where any action other than rapid military reinforcement and development of the military relationship with Taiwan is seen as weak because China is increasing its military capacity, said the deterrence expert. It will continue to weaken the foundation for peace as long as that dynamic exists, and it would be very challenging politically to move away from it.